Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name's Rory Paquette, and I know you know that, but I just like to remind myself how lucky I am to be sitting in this chair, folks. If you guys were not out there doing what you're doing, liking, sharing, subscribing, the whole nine yards, I wouldn't be able to sit here and do what I'm doing. So I am eternally grateful. I do want to thank you guys, like I do every single episode, for just responding the way you have when we went to 7 days a week. It was a big risk. It was a big move, and you folks have showed up just like the stars. It's been amazing. So, thank you so much for your support. Love you guys. As we get rolling today, if you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, you know what's coming next. That's right, we got to pay a couple bills. So, let me get a sip of my preferred beverage. Mm, mm, mm. Good stuff. Wow. You guys all know what we're drinking. That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. They brew a mean cup of Joe. It's a fantastic cup of coffee, guys. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans, which is one of the biggest reasons why we support them. Folks, if you are a veteran out there, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, you and your family, for everything that you've given us. And the reason I get to sit here and do this is because of you. So thank you. We love you, and we're glad you found a home here with the Power Man podcast. To all of our veterans out there, go check out Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Let me get one more sip of this so I can keep up with this young buck sitting across the table from me. Okay, there we go. Let's rock and roll, everybody. This guy was born to be on this podcast. He fits us like a glove. So please welcome to the show, men's coach and the founder of Mensch. And I'm going to let him tell you all about that. Pretty cool. He's a masculinity father, leader, Joshua Fineman. How you doing, Josh?
It's a pleasure to be here, Rory, and your voice is even more magnetizing when you switch the recording on than it was beforehand. So yeah, it's I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm going to have to get, he's going to invoice me for $20 later on, folks. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to have to pay for that compliment somewhere. So,
I
Josh,
get
listen,
free cup of coffee, right?
free coffee. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh man. All right. Listen, Josh, I know we got a lot that we can talk about today. We could probably talk for
Sure.
hours about all these topics, but give everybody an
Yeah.
idea of who is Joshua Feynman. What are you about? What got you into this, masculinity world in the
Yeah.
first place?
Okay, cool. Forgive me if this goes on for longer than a minute or so, but uh, so who am I? I'm a father. I'm a man who has values of kindness and courage, and I'm a man who can have existential crises every few months. I'm a man who has been with his wife since he was 18 years old. And I've really kind of matured into the man I am in large part because of my relationship with her. I'm a son, I'm a friend, and I happen to also be a men's coach and run a beautiful community out of London and also through some online activities I put on called Mensch. And I think I am a continuous aspiring Mensch. And Mensch is, it means a couple of things in different languages. In German, it means human or to be human, which I just think is, you know, just beautiful, just generally that it happens to be that word. But the reason why I called my community Mensch is because I come from a Jewish lineage, and in old Eastern European shtetl days, there was a language called Yiddish, which is still around today, just not really commonly used. Uh, and Mensch was a word that I didn't come from a religious household, but I came from a culturally alive Jewish household, and Yiddish was kind of used, banded around a lot. And this word Mensch was used at home and in my culture, and it's largely used to describe men, although you can use it for anybody. And when I was growing up, I think when you called somebody a Mensch, it kind of meant I translated it as you're a good guy. But actually, when I decided to call my community Mensch, and I looked up the English translation of it, it means a person of integrity. And integrity, for me is the word that underpins all of the work I do. It's about, that isn't just about being honest, it's about living in alignment, knowing who you are and coming from that place and making sure that as many of your actions as possible are in full alignment with what you value the most. Um, and integrity is about the pursuit of that as opposed to being this perfect person that is always in integrity. So the idea that I could name this community of men Mensch, just it felt like a perfect fit, really. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how Mensch came about, and I discovered it because I was a high performing perfectionist people pleaser from a young age for a multitude of reasons, which we either can get into or not. And I entered my uh, early 30s really with this kind of dual personality. On the outside, I was an extrovert, I was funny, I was full of adventure and aliveness. And yet on the inside, I think I was carrying around, if not a lot of feelings of, if not describe myself as I was depressed, it was a lot of melancholy, a lot of
Mm.
lostness, a lot of real lacking of purpose or self-worth. Um, and we have three children who are now soon to be 9, 6, and 4. But when my first son was born, 3 months into that, my mum got in a terrible car crash, and she was in hospital for 3 months. We didn't know whether she was going to live or die for the first couple of weeks of that. And I came home one day from hospital, and my wife had our baby in her arms, and I looked like a zombie. And she could tell that I was really low that day, and I think she probably assumed it was something to do with my mum. But the stories I started rattling off to her was around pressures from work, not getting on with business partner, feeling very low and lost. And this had been a story that she'd lived with for really like 10 years of our relationship. And she just looked me dead in the eye at that moment, recognizing we have a child now, and your mum is on death's door. Unfortunately, she's well and alive now. But in that moment, she looked at me and she said, I can't play this role for you anymore. You have to find something that can help you. I think you need help, and that's okay. But you need to go and get some help for this. This isn't you. Um, and it was like this really healthy slap around the face for me. And it was the best thing that ever uh, she ever did for me. And it was the best thing she probably ever did for us, because I think over that period of time, she'd become more like my therapist than my life partner. And whilst I had parents who loved me and friends all around me that I knew I could go to, I never quite felt like I was being met the way I needed to be met in where I was at. So that began this journey into self-discovery. I didn't think I needed therapy. It was quite taboo back then for me. So I was like, oh, I'm not suicidal. Like, I'm not clinically depressed or anything. Like, I don't think therapy's for me, but I loved the idea of seeing a life coach when I read up what life coaching is about. And as with any form of, unless you're working with a more typical kind of performance-based coach, a lot of coaching now ends up going like layers deeper than what most people think when they go into it. And I started to learn about myself, and then somewhere along the way, when that dynamic started kind of coming to a natural close with this brilliant coach, who I'd been working with for maybe 18 months or so. Um, I was life put this man Kenny in my path, and Kenny invited me into the world of men's groups, and he, unbeknownst to me at the time, is one of the kind of godfathers of this space in the UK, been doing it for 25, 30 years, and just had this like incredible aura about him, and really magnetic, and drew me in. So we started working with each other one on one. I started going to his groups every week. At the time, I was running a pretty established, successful creative agency in the advertising space. And yeah, I started to listen to the voice inside my head, which was telling me, you don't want to do this anymore. You're burning out. And I just followed this trail that Kenny had left for me of like where I feel most alive is in these men's groups and in this space of just stripping off the armor and the protection and the need to be someone and just be myself and be with others who can be themselves. And I think the one-on-one space with Kenny, he continues to supervise me and mentor me with the fact that I've kind of moved into the space that, and taken on the magical tools that he handed down to me, and now I'm sharing them with others. But there's something in the group dynamic that complements the one-on-one space because I felt purposeful because I wasn't just sharing my challenges, I was listening to others, and I wasn't trying to fix or advise them, and I wasn't, you know, I was just listening and sharing what came up for me and asking questions. And, it really changed the trajectory of my life. And 6 years on now, I would never have thought I'd be doing what I'm doing, but I am, and it's, dramatically changed who I am and how I show up. And doesn't mean I'm perfect, but like I said, it means that when I fall out of alignment with myself, I pick that up very quickly and have the support systems that enable me to come back to myself. And as a father and a husband and a leader, um, and a friend and a family member and, a human being, like I just feel so grateful that I've been able to do this for myself.
Absolutely. I love your story, first of all. Um, most of the men that I talk to, they're in this space. Most of us,
Mm,
we come from our story and our desire to be in this space comes from our childhood, our parents, issues like that, and or wives who had enough or left or there's those qualifying events as you go,
yeah,
and for some of us it's multiple of those, so I can
yeah,
absolutely
that's me.
appreciate what you're saying. Right on. And as far as the therapy goes, I've never met a man that I've worked with who had not been to therapy yet who had a positive idea of therapy. So
Mm,
now after they go,
mm,
very often they change their minds about it. But
yeah,
beforehand,
yeah,
there's no man who goes, "Yes, please, I'd love to go to therapy." I've never met one.
yeah, yeah,
So, a
yeah.
couple questions for you as we unpack all of that and your story. Um, your uh, your childhood. I mean, you always have the right to say, "Hey, I don't want to answer that question," or just say pass. But for you, was it mostly from this conversation with your wife? Did it start in your childhood? Where did the masculinity thing kind of take root?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly didn't start with my wife, and without going too far down the rabbit hole, I don't even know if it even started with my parents. With where I'm at right now, we're talking generational, ancestral
Ah,
wounds and trauma, on top of stuff. But if I just kind of keep it within the bounds of my life that I've lived,
mhm,
so I grew up in a home that was full of love, and but equally when I look back now, and now I know my parents as I know them, I can see also there was a lot of stuff under the surface that was unprocessed, a lot of grief, a lot of anger. um and I think I have always been a very deep feeler and deep thinker. And um and so, I knew like I knew as a child that my parents loved me, and that I was safe on the one hand, but then on the other hand, there were things going on which I think made me want to be a golden child, want to please, want to perform, kind of learn unconsciously through no blame or fault of my parents, but actually started to believe that love was conditional. And then that followed me through into so many of my decisions and choices through life. So, it's funny, like when I think about my parents, there was a time in my life where I adored and idolized them, and I actually thought that I came from a special family, and that we were better than everyone else, and I was. And then I went through a phase of recognizing actually that may not be the case. And so I went through a period, I think, of anger and resentment and feeling like they couldn't give me what I really needed. And then slowly through my journey, I've learned how to actually see them as human beings, especially being a parent myself, and learning slowly over time to actually just accept that they were trying their best with the tools that they had, and that actually so much of what, in fact, everything, not everything that I am, but so much of who they were, either in terms of what they did give me, but also in terms of what they didn't give me, was just such a gift to enable me to step further into who I am today. So, long and short is, of course, it started in childhood.
Right.
Um, and yeah, and my version of that was a father who was grieving the loss of his brother, who died at a very young age. Well, I say very young. He was a young father. He was 28. My dad was 23, and my dad took over the family business essentially. And he just like he processed grief by just drilling down and working. And all my memories of him in childhood were really lovely memories, but I also recognized that he wasn't there a lot of the time. And then so my mum was there to bring up two excitable, challenging, energetic, rough and tumble boys. And she was also had to grow up very quickly from a young age because her older sister died. Um, and so I think she found motherhood really hard. And so there was a lot of room for fear and anger and joy in our household. But I think when I look back now, there just wasn't enough room for sadness to be in sadness together.
Yeah.
And so actually, as someone who could feel like when I look back, I'm like, oh, I think I was absorbing all of that sadness, and that's what this melancholy has kind of
Yeah.
followed me around without knowing how to process it. So, um, yeah, so I grew up in this household where I then took that on as being I'm it's up to me to make sure that my mum is happy. So I took on the role of like the good child, the golden child, and it's up to me to try and prove my worth to my dad through success and achievement, not necessarily because that's what he was telling me I needed to do, but just because that's what I was absorbing from his behavior.
Yeah.
um, and that became this like driver for many years until it became exhausting. And then I rebelled against it, and I was like, "Fuck this! I don't give a shit about anything." And I smoked a lot of weed, and I drank, and I kind of did what I needed to do, but I did, I stopped exercising. I was a big sportsman and stopped that, and I think I took on the role of Joker and not taking life seriously because it just felt too hard and exhausting.
Hmm.
So yeah, that would be my response to that.
What snapped you out of that, out of the role of Joker?
What snapped me out of that?
Unless you're still in that role and you're just fooling me. I mean, it's
Yeah, yeah. I look, that's always going to be it's an amazing gift. I can, and that's something that I've taken from both my parents that I love them for. From my mum, it was about putting effort into creating experiences that are fun and joyful for people.
Hmm.
We threw the best house parties and put on amazing things that we brought our friends and family into in our home that they enjoyed and my parents enjoyed because they just wanted to share that with them. And one of the amazing gifts I got from my dad was like just perfect timing of bringing humor in when it's needed to kind of heal a space, not necessarily to avoid emotion, but to kind of to bring people together. And humor can play an amazing role in that. So I
Sure.
still have that as part of me. I don't think that's ever going to go away. And I love that part of me, but the part that needed to play that role, needed to be different, needed to go to the extremes, needed to kind of push people to places that felt uncomfortable. Um, I think I started becoming more aware of that as I moved into my 20s and people started reflecting back to me at times that actually I took it a step too far.
Mm.
I remember with my best friend um, who was going through something very major um, with his partner, and I remember making a comment that I thought would lighten the mood or would kind of make him know it's okay to be normal in this. And actually, he like spoke to me afterwards and said how hurtful it was. And I remember going and apologizing to him and just bursting down in tears because that was just not my intention at all. And that was a big moment for me to recognize the impact of playing at the edges of life and being the rebel all the time. And then I think it's just deepened and deepened and deepened where I don't take it as personally now when I've pushed people's buttons because I can see that that isn't just about me. But what I do take responsibility for is if I have caused harm on someone and that wasn't my intention to like apologize for that. So
Sure.
it's probably been in since my mid 20s. But yeah,
Interesting. Okay. I appreciate you sharing all this stuff, with everybody who's listening. I have a great appreciation for folks like you who have been through it, because when we start working with men, we're going to hear a lot of these things. There's a lot of men, I'm sure, who have been through these different stages and feelings that, as you have, and have dealt with a lot of
yeah,
the same problems. There's a lot of men's coaches out there that, have really lived just sort of easy lives. And they said, hey, I'm going to go coach men, like they're 22 and they're going, hey, this is how you become a man. And I'm like, the heck do you know about being a man, man? You know?
yeah, 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 yeah,
So when
yeah,
you're a men's coach, when you can point to, I've been through this, here's my adversity that I've handled, when
yeah,
someone's talking to you and you can say, I've been there, I get that, that gives
yeah,
you a ton of
yeah,
credibility, and I'm really glad to
yeah,
hear that you have that to draw on because it just makes you more powerful in your position.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. It kind of reminds me of um look, I'm still like I'm always going to be deepening my relationship with myself.
Yeah.
I'm not fixed, and I actually kind of I pull away from any rhetoric online from any coaches who talk about the fact that you have this problem, here's this solution for it, because I just don't believe life is a tick box exercise. Certainly, that hasn't been my experience of it. So, like for me, the most important thing is that like I have my supervisor coach, like Kenny, my mentor. I have my own, I have two men's groups that are just my men's groups. I've one that's local to me, so we can sit around a fire together, and I've got an online mastermind with other coaches that I aspire to be like. So I'm hanging out in spaces that enable me to process what's going on for myself. And I'm not saying I won't ever get to a space where I may not need that stuff for a period of time, but it's important, I think, that as important as it is for that 22-year-old coach to have some experience to pass on, I think it's really important that they are deeply invested in the work for themselves
Sure.
as well.
Yeah.
For me, like that's kind of the first point of this is like we can only expect the willingness and commitment from our clients that we have ourselves in this work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The anybody who's in this space where we're talking about men, fatherhood, masculinity, these types of things, we all have, our own perspective, our own definitions of some of these words. As you are working with men in your Mensch group, what does masculinity mean to you guys? And what does showing up as a father mean in your groups, in your training, in your world?
Yeah, you know what? Like, it's a great question because I often grapple myself with the question of like, what does it mean to have a healthy, to be in that? I'm always in that question. What does it mean to be a man? Sometimes I'm sitting in the question of like, I don't think it, something in me is like, I don't think it means anything. Like these masculine and feminine mean something, but being a man versus being a woman, sometimes for me it feels like I don't know if there's a biological difference maybe at birth, but in terms of the qualities of what it means to be that, I'm like, I'm not sure if I even know in myself clearly. But I get drawn to two things. The first thing is the word integrity. And I think whether you're a man or a woman or however you identify, like integrity is what is at the core of Mensch. It's not necessarily masculinity that's at the core, it's integrity.
Hmm.
And I think giving space for men to understand what that word means to them, what their values are, what their principles are, how they want to show up as a father, or and to give themselves that space to know that they've got brotherhood, they've got people with them who see that in them and will support them and call them forward into that. That's what Mensch is about. That's what my work is about. And then, if you were to ask me what I draw from my understanding of healthy masculinity, like I often go to um, like Jungian archetypes, like king, warrior, lover, magician. I really like the interplay of both the masculine and the feminine, the yin and the yang, when it comes to what it means to be a healthy person, to be a healthy man. Healthy masculinity requires femininity. It requires being able to, and when I think of those words, the masculine is someone who recognizes their purpose and they're in service. It's someone who's able to calmly lay down healthy boundaries. It's someone who's able to step back and see the connection between themselves and life, and being able to listen to the clues around them, not just be so fixated on their own story. But it's also about aliveness. It's about being connected to what's going on from below the neck down or below the head down, and being able to um, express emotions, not just hold them in, which may be classified as more feminine quality than a masculine quality energetically. So I think healthy masculinity is it's about balance, and it's about presence, and it's about calmness, and it's about compassion. um, but in some respects, as I said, I think that's just about being a healthy human being, not just about being a healthy man.
Hmm. All right, great, great answer. I appreciate that. As you work with men, I want to applaud you because you are one of the few people that I have had the opportunity to speak with that are focusing your efforts on an in-person coaching program. And I don't think we have anywhere
Yeah,
near enough of those. Everybody wants to be online,
yeah,
of course.
yeah,
And
yeah,
sometimes you need to be. There's good and bad to everything. But being able to do it, one-on-one, face-to-face, go down and meet in person, and have a coaching session is just so invaluable in our
yeah,
world today. So I want to applaud you for that. As you are meeting with the men that are in your program and men that you coach, Is there, one or two things that you see as sort of, and I would never ask you, of course, to let someone else's problem out of the bag, but
Sure.
just in terms of generally speaking with the men you work with,
Yeah.
are there one or two issues that you seem to see more often than others that are sort of plaguing men right now, in your world?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, certainly a sense of purpose really comes up. And these can be men who are fathers or who are leaders of big companies. But, and I'm not saying it just has to be that, but these are men that you would think based off of the stories we're told of what it means to be successful and purposeful that they should feel that way. But there is a sense of lostness and not enoughness, and why am I really here? Am I building the life I actually want to build? Is a big thing that comes in.
Hmm.
In fact, for many men, they've ticked all the boxes, they've achieved everything, and they're just sitting in this question still of like, why am I not happy? Why is this? I don't feel like this is the life I want, but I don't know what to do with that. And hopefully, the process of being in these kinds of spaces is that before they move into the actions, they're able to just be in that space of discomfort with others. So purpose is like a really big thing. The other thing which feels a lot more tangible is almost certainly around relational challenges. In large part, it's to do with partnerships. Whoever you're in that kind of romantic relationship with, or if you're not in a relationship with anyone, there's something around seeking more connection and seeking more appreciation from others in your life. Like I meet a lot of husbands who feel like they're not seen enough in their relationship, especially when there are young children involved. Um, and and then we give space to kind of really unpack that together. And a lot of men and fathers are just feel relieved that they're not the only ones who feel that way. So certainly to do with romantic relationships is a big one. And then there are some other really important things that kind of that certainly play into the purpose piece, which is around career and feeling just like absolutely exhausted and overstretched. And I think one of the big challenges that a lot of men who come in face who end up actually leaving is being so hardwired to achieving and doing, um, that when they're in a space where there aren't clear uh, goals for being in this space beyond we are here together to be together first and foremost. A lot of these guys get freaked out and leave because like they just don't know what to do because they're like, but I need to do this. I want to do this. This isn't giving me enough accountability. This isn't giving me enough direction or structure. And it's very like I get it. Like it's very disconcerting for a lot of guys to be in a space that it definitely has structure and frameworks, but it's very much focused on being here in the present together. So frankly, like one of the big problems that a lot of men face that come is just the total discomfort of being present together, being present with emotions, being
Hmm.
present with your challenges and not needing to do anything about it. So yeah, so that would be another thing as well.
That's hard for anybody, any man. I can see that 100%.
Yeah,
So yeah, we're gonna sit here and we're gonna talk and we're gonna talk about these things, and I'm supposed to do this work, but there's no way to accomplish anything that I can
yeah,
pick up and
yeah,
hold,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
can't fix this,
yeah,
and I can't
yeah,
win.
yeah, exactly. And I can't win. And I'm this guy with my wife a lot of the time. She'll come to me with a problem, and like when I'm not on my best days, I will move into fix it problem solving mode, and she is just like, I don't need any of this right now. Like, stop coaching me, stop asking questions to help me get somewhere. Just like I just want to be in the mess of it with you. And, what I know in myself and in the clients I have and work with and the groups that I facilitate is when we come into these problems with fear and anxieties and needing to fix them, it's very rare that our solutions are actually what we really need. Whereas when we're able to just be in the mess of it all and allow the fog to lift naturally, that's when clarity comes. And that's when the actions that you take are much more aligned with who you really are, as opposed to the man or person that needs to be something to prove something or to prove something wrong or to achieve or to show that you are someone in the world.
Nice.
So that really all of my work with men is coming from a place of acceptance and love and knowing that you're not broken. You aren't broken. You are whole exactly as you are. And what happens when you can give yourself that gift of recognizing that? What comes from there is like, well, like I know from my own journey, it's just stuff that you could never have thought of if you're in your head trying to work through the problem from fear and not enoughness.
Hmm. All right. Okay. If we go back to your story just for a minute, your wife hitting you with that,
Yeah,
after everything was going on with, your mother and so on,
yeah,
and you're talking
yeah,
about, your career and you're kind of unloading on your wife, right? Like, hey, here's all my
yeah,
problems,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
sharing, so to speak, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And she
yeah,
hit you with that, and she said, "Hey, I can't be
yeah,
this for you anymore."
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Clearly that changed you, and you said, "Okay, I have to
yeah,
be different within this
yeah.
relationship." What were just one or two things that you decided, "Hey, I can't do this anymore, or I have to start doing this"? What was, the beginning of an action plan to start healing that wound, that conversation?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting actually. The first place I went to is I remember when I first, so I really zigzagged career. I was in finance and numbers, and then film finance, and then film production, and set up my own creative agency. So, like, I've moved away from numbers to personal stories in like my career. But I remember when I set my creative agency up, I went to a friend of mine who was a psychologist, and he introduced me to this was like way back in the day when Headspace wasn't that. This is like 12 years ago or something. He was like, check out Headspace. I'm recommending meditation to my friends. And so I tried it out and I really enjoyed it. And then I started reading books on understanding of self and stuff. And I was kind of in and out of that, but it was a very solitary experience. And actually, when my wife said this thing to me, the first thing I went to was not like, I need to do a meditation course or I need to journal more or I need to do something in solitary, in solitude. I was like, I need to find someone to talk to. Like, I want to engage with another person about this.
Hmm.
Like, I recognize that there is something in me that needs to change because my wife has just said to me, I can't do this anymore. And that really hit me of like, wow, what have I been putting her under for the last 10 years?
Hmm.
Um, but it was this thing of like I need to speak this out. I personally to this day regulate best by talking it out loud with others. Um, and like I said, I have parents who loved me, but they would have tried to fix me or rescue me. I had friends that also I could definitely share with, but just wouldn't, not through any fault of theirs either, know quite how to meet me. And they all have their own shit that they're dealing with, so they don't even have the capacity to support me in that sense. And just, I was like, I don't want to be judged and I don't want to feel like a burden. And as I said, I thought, you know what, I don't need therapy, but I need to talk to someone. So my first venture in was meeting a life coach who lived locally to me. And as I said, there was something about coaching around life that I really wanted, because it felt like actually I'm what's exhausting me is how I am in life. Whilst I was putting a lot of emphasis on work, it was like I don't want a business coach to tell me how to make my business better. Like I want a coach who can help me figure out how to make myself better.
Mm.
And that was the first port of call. And then it was really a couple of years into that venture that I then discovered groups, men's groups. But that was the first thing. It was like, I really want to find someone that I can share this with. And I didn't know it consciously at the time, but what I recognize now is I want to share this with someone who's a great fucking listener, who's actually going to really hear what I'm saying and hear what I'm not saying and help me process stuff.
Great. Wow. And now you are that listener for your people.
Yeah, I try to be as much as possible.
Excellent.
And I know I am in many respects as well. I say on shows like this, I think it's really important that for any guys who are listening to this who have resonated and might feel like I'm a few steps down the road to them. um, like the first thing is just being okay with the fact that it feels quite scary to make a step forward, and it feels quite scary not to quite know what the right thing is. Like the very fact that there's a part of you that wants to change, is enough. And then the part of you that then either puts it off or is scared of what might be the right next step. Like that is really good to be feeling that, because any sort of feeling of resistance is typically there because you're stepping into the unknown. And the unknown is where we grow, it's where we feel alive, it's where all the juicy goodness of life lives. It doesn't really live within the confines of the box that we know really well. Comfort does,
Mm.
but the thing that you're looking to change comes from stepping outside of that. So the first thing is like, even if you're feeling it, just like that's a good sign. And then the next step is to like not go crazy. Take the first small step you could take for yourself. Drop the need for it to be the right thing for you. I didn't know if coaching was going to be right for me. I didn't know if this woman that I found on like a random portal was going to be the right coach for me. I didn't know if talking to others would be right for me, but I knew in myself that I'd be excited by that. That would feel exciting to do something like that. And it felt scary to do, but there was a part of me that was being drawn to it. So there are a million things you can do for yourself, and you can do it in solitude if you want. You can do it in groups if you want. You can do it with coaches if you want. You can do it with friends if you want. You can do it with your partner if you want, although I would probably recommend not to do that if you're in a place of struggle to begin with, because of my experience, and take that with a pinch of salt. But like, just notice there's a part of you that wants to change. Accept and embrace that it's going to be a little scary, and move towards the smallest thing that just interests you, letting go of the need for it to be the solution, but just try it because it might be something, the possibility of what it could be, as opposed to what it has to be.
Wow. I love that. I always give my guests a chance to kind of wrap up, but I mean, you kind of just did. That was perfect. The way you put it all
Cool,
together.
man.
So, we'll change it up a little bit before we, close up and as we kind of bring things
Yeah.
to a close here. And I appreciate
Yeah.
everything you've had to say today, brother. How can people reach you? Let's cover that real quick.
Sure. So I like visit the website bemoremensch.com. I'm sure that will be in the notes at the bottom. And on the website there is a little button you can click, and then you can book in some time with me after you fill a small form out. And that's half an hour of me and you talking, not me trying to sell coaching to you or sell Mensch to you, just understanding more about who you are, what you need, and then if it feels like me and Mensch is a good fit, then we can explore that. But if not, like I'm here to put you, just to signpost you to what could be helpful. So I just really encourage you to do that. And I'm not really on social. I set up a Instagram thing a year or two ago and just dumped it. So you're not going to find me on there, but I am on LinkedIn. So just type in Joshua Fineman and connect with me there if you feel more comfortable doing it there than through the website.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Like I said, normally, I kind of wrap with, giving you a chance to close this up. I will do a modified version of this, though. Is there anything I didn't ask you? Is there anything that we talked about maybe you want to double down on? Is there anything that you want to, leave behind for guys besides what you already have? Or
Yeah.
maybe a part of your coaching program we haven't, discussed that you want to make sure you offer. Anything that you want to close out with, the floor is still yours. Go for it.
Thank you.
All right.
Um, yeah, I mean, just reach out if you're interested in me and want to find out. I don't feel there's any need to offer anything right now. But the thing that I do like to close on, that just feels so important and is like my message that I would have said to myself 10 years ago when I was in a particular place. Like if I was to go back in time and say it to myself, I think this resonates with any man listening to this who is in that place of wanting to change and not quite putting the steps in place. A lot of men have this huge resistance to taking space for themselves. We all wear lots of hats: dad hat, work hat, son hat, friend hat, and we never just take those hats off and just give some space for ourselves. Um, and I think it's really important to understand that taking this next step for yourself, it is not just for yourself. It is for yourself, but taking this space for yourself is going to create ripples for the people around you that like you won't even imagine. Like for being just more present for 5 minutes with your kids than you would have been otherwise, or being able to actually not step in and try and save your partner as they're sharing their problem with you, or being able to be with people who are grieving, or to feel joy more and to share that with others more and to just enjoy life more and feel alive more. Like by you being that way, you are putting stuff out into this world that's needed right now. So it's probably the most selfless thing you could possibly do, stepping into this kind of space.
Nice. All right. Beautiful. Love the wrap up. Absolutely fantastic. The founder of Mensch, the men's program, Joshua Fineman. Joshua, thank you for being here today, brother, sharing all these stories about yourself and for putting yourself out there to help other men with the issues they're having. We need a lot more like you, man. And I appreciate you coming on here today.
Thank you, Rory. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being on here with you.
You got it. Folks, that's been another episode of the Power of Man podcast. And the reason that we have such powerful men on here bringing you such powerful messages is because we're united in hoping that you can find your power again so that you can become a better protector, a better provider, a better leader tomorrow than you are today, so that you can become a better father, a better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want that for you is because you have value, because you matter, and because you're worth it. You just have to believe it. Until next time.